So it looks like, oh, okay, we are streaming, we are live.
Almost.
Okay.
Let's go ahead and get started.
Almost. It'll be a moment.
Let me know.
I just saw the thing come up on the screen saying we're live. So it looks like, oh, okay, we are streaming.
We good?
We're
Yes.
good, Mike.
All right, you guys, welcome to North Gateway Redevelopment Advisory Board meeting. Let's go ahead and get a roll call going.
Okay, August 5th, 2021. Mike Alley.
Here.
Barb Hickrish.
Here.
Brittany Davidson.
Here.
Nate Levin.
Here.
Jared Martin is excused. Pedro Mayoral is excused. Mike White
Here.
is our acting chair today. Mark Adams is excused. Damia Ballard.
Here.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Hopefully everyone got a copy of the agenda and whatnot today. I'm gonna go ahead and bring a motion to get that approved.
We want to make a change in the agenda.
Any changes?
No, we want to make a change. So we want to approve it with an amendment. The agenda.
Okay.
The amendment would be to move the action item into an informational item for the end of the meeting due to a change in COVID circumstances.
All right. Can we someone
So moved.
get a second?
I'll second.
Awesome. All in favor for that?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Anyone? Great. Next section, let's get approval of minutes from June 3rd.
Mike Alley, I make a motion to approve the minutes from June 3rd meeting.
Can I get a second?
Brittany, I'll second.
Awesome. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All in opposal? All right, we're good there. Next, we don't have anyone for public comment. It looks like.
Nope, and I don't believe anything has been submitted. Have you received anything, Therese?
No, I have not received anything.
Okay, so no public comment.
Awesome. We're gonna go ahead and move into having Annie and Seth give us an update.
Great. Give me a quick moment here to.
We
Yeah,
want
welcome.
to share an update this morning on the economic development strategy update. It's been several years since this strategy has been updated. Seth's going to walk through the key goals and actions that are proposed. We hope to take this to City Council for approval or consideration in October. Done quite a bit of outreach to date. So this is, you'll see in the recommendations, the focus is really COVID recovery, economic recovery from COVID-19. And you'll see there's also a strong equity lens in the plan, ensuring that all parts of our community are able to recover from the economic impacts of COVID.
Therese, have you made me a co-host? Okay. Cool. Okay. Are you all seeing like the full screen presentation at this point? Great.
Yes.
You also see your notes.
Your notes.
You see the notes too? Okay. Thank you for that.
There we
That's
go.
perfect.
Good. Okay. Great. Thanks. Great. I don't know if I've attended one of these yet. I know I've been to West Salem, but I'm not sure if I've been to North Gateway's meeting. But my name is Seth Leonards, and I work with Sarah and Annie in the economic development group with the city. So thank you for the opportunity to present the city's proposed COVID-19 recovery plan. And we'll have some time too for you to share your input on what we have in here. So this is the agenda for the day. I'm thinking it'll probably take 10 to 15 minutes. And then we'll leave some time at the end to kind of talk about some of the items and also talk about 2640 Portland Road, which is a site that the Urban Development Department owns the old Zamora site or DMV site. So just starting with a little bit of context, what this plan is and how it fits into the city's kind of overall planning efforts. So the city develops plans and strategies to guide priorities for spending and staff time. The city has adopted a strategic plan which guides priorities across city functions. And this economic development strategy, when approved, will guide our staff time, the economic development group staff time, how we work with community organizations, our partners, funding priorities for our group. So to develop this draft, we've done a lot of outreach with community organizations, including those that work with businesses, including Latino Business Alliance, PCUN, Small Business Development Center, Willamette Workforce Partnership, and others. And really, we're hoping that this plan is reflective of the needs of all of our businesses, and that that all of our business will have access to the tools and resources needed for the economic recovery from the pandemic. Salem's businesses, culture, and product diversity is really our strength, and we want to make sure that we're playing to those strengths. So just really quickly, I think all of us are aware of how COVID has hit our economy, but just kind of how some of those have influenced what's in this plan, and maybe a little bit different than some of our past economic development plans. But I think the workforce is probably the biggest one. Unemployment rate is better than it was before, better than it was at the peak of the pandemic, but we're still 2 times higher. Unemployment rate is still 2 times higher than it was pre-pandemic. We're also dealing with workforce shortages in several different industry sectors. And then there's barriers to getting employees back into work. And I think the other one is just like this huge shift that we've gone to a remote world where possible, and how that's impacted so many spaces, from potentially needing less retail and office space, really ensuring high quality broadband. Like it was important before the pandemic, it's even more important now. And then how the pandemic has really hit certain sectors worse than others, including like tourism, hospitality, retail. So that being said, let's pivot and look at what's in the plan itself. So as we developed the plan, we met with our partners and businesses, and they told us the challenges that they were having or that they were hearing. So we began to draft these strategies that our department can do to draft strategies that are within the realm of what our department or group can do. And then, so through kind of all those conversations, we came up with these 8 key themes. And now I'll just kind of do a couple minute run through of each of these themes, starting with just like what it is, and then how we'll kind of approach that theme. So the first one is looking at affordable workforce housing. We know it's projected that within the next 15 years, Salem's going to have 60,000 more people, and those people need places to live. So we need to be looking at workforce housing for those folks. And then I think one of the things we'll be working on really is like collecting data and understanding the need. Like what type of units do we need? What is affordable for those folks? And as we start to understand that, that'll help us with strategies to incentivize housing. Another part is just looking at sites. We may, as I was saying, that COVID has impacted maybe a need for less retail, and maybe those retail sites can be looking for housing. I think the Nordstrom project downtown is a great example of that we're now seeing, what was a mall being converted into apartment units. And then, as you all know, like within our renewal areas, we have incentive programs that we can do for housing. We have multi-unit tax credits, and there's some other tax incentives the city can offer. Then looking at available land for businesses, this is really looking at like commercial industrial lands, sometimes referred to as employment lands. And really our goal here is we want to maintain a mix of land for all business types, which means, having large lots, small lots, available in different parts of the cities too. So again, in this plan, I think what we'll be looking at is doing a really in-depth inventory of our available land. We have a general sense of that. But I think we'll really start to dig deeper into it to know okay, even though this land is vacant or potentially redevelopable, are there other things that are inhibiting development of those sites? We can continue to look for federal funds to develop challenging sites. Those are areas where maybe there's an environmental concern or a lack of infrastructure or something else encumbering the site. So we can look to try to relieve what's hindering the development, so the private sector can come in and develop those. And then again, I think we may be looking at reusing of sites due to changing market forces. The next one is looking at broadband internet. High quality internet was important before the pandemic. It's even more important now. And one challenge of broadband is we as the city really don't have a whole lot of control over the extension of broadband services. It's through private internet service providers. Those providers are competing against each other, so they often don't want to divulge too much information on their systems. So we will do what we can to work with internet service providers to identify gaps in service areas and try to improve service throughout the city. The next one is supporting existing businesses. We also sometimes refer to this as business retention and expansion. And really, the thought here is that even the most successful businesses still need help sometimes. It could be right now finding employees, or maybe they get this like great deal with Walmart, some big company, but to fulfill that order, they need to really get their inventory up. They're not going to get paid for that inventory for some time, so they need some sort of loan to like get them through that area. So for us, Annie and I think really just we want to be touching base with our businesses on a regular basis, so that we can, so that when they need us, we're there for them. So our goal here is really just to have, that Salem is a great and welcoming place to do business. One of the things, referring to the equity lens that Annie was talking about is really, we want to review our programs and ensure that our programs lead to equitable outcomes. Going again to like, when do businesses really need us? A lot of times, like when they're starting out, that's when they need like a little more help. So we want to focus on those type of businesses. And then because COVID did hit that hospitality and leisure sector, I think that we'll probably spend a little bit more time with that sector than we would in past years. So entrepreneurship just is, new and emerging businesses. And I think what we know about entrepreneurship is that, they really need money, they need mentorship, and then they need this like ecosystem of resources to create a place where entrepreneurship can really thrive. And that could be like a, what's the word I'm looking for here? Like a personal intellectual property attorney, right? Like, do we have intellectual property attorneys in Salem? Do we have accountants who really understand that on like how entrepreneurial businesses work and things like that? So I foresee over, the next period of this plan, continuing to work with people like Mike and others to kind of just foster this entrepreneurial community. The next one is workforce development, which is just really refers to training our upcoming workforce and existing workforce to meet the needs of our businesses and the jobs that we have in this area. So, in our plan, I think we focus a lot on young people in this, like even school age folks, and really getting them to understand the value of work. And then something that really from the pandemic, I think, is the identifying the need for childcare, and that with schools being closed, you had people who probably wanted to get back into the workforce but couldn't, or it didn't make economic sense for them to do that due to childcare. So I think this is, I've worked on a number of economic development plans, and childcare has never been included in one. And I think now you're going to start seeing childcare often being included in these types of plans. The next one that we have is recruitment. So the state has goals for how much land the city has available for job centers. In Salem, our largest land for new large job centers, Mill Creek in Southeast Salem. That area is starting to, I think it's almost all under contract at this point. So yeah, we're seeing a lot of development in this area. And our goal here is just to continue to be competitive location for new businesses. Salem is getting a lot of interest right now. And we just want to, make sure that we are continuing to offer what's needed to be competitive. And then the last one that we have is promoting Salem, kind of like marketing and branding. And, this I think will be aligning efforts with Travel Salem and others who are, kind of promoting in the area, and how do we align Salem with some of these bigger like state items. And then I think talking about like why it's great to do business here, but also focusing on like, why is this a really great place to live? And then Annie, I'll turn it over to you here. We just want to talk a little bit about this 2640 Portland Road site. And I won't give the intro, you can do it if you want to hop in here.
Okay. So I think many of you remember, we've talked about this site over the years, and I know more recently you've gotten updates from Gretchen Bennett and others about the temporary use that's planned at this site on Portland Road. We still have longer term vision of redeveloping this site and beyond, the temporary use, thinking about testing some concepts like the Mercado concept that we've talked about, where, like focusing on a center to support small business, a place where small businesses can, maybe have a space in whether it's a shipping container or a food truck or inside the building. We continue to hear about the need for commercial kitchen potentially in that space. So again, that dotted line there is the future Pine Street connection. There is not a timeline to that connection, but again, that realignment is likely something that would impact the overall redevelopment of that site. So the pallet homes, that use is permitted through March of 2022. And so again, we're looking at how can that site be used beyond that March of next year date. So. Seth, can you advance the?
Yeah.
Thanks. And these are, again, we talked in the past about shipping containers. It could be another concept that we explore, but I think the idea with these was a relatively low cost, temporary way to provide some space for entrepreneurs and small businesses to sell, whether it's food or small products. So these were some of the examples that we looked at a couple of years ago, looking at cities around the country. We visited with the partners at the Mercado in Portland. And I think if we have a few minutes here, or as you're thinking beyond this meeting, we'd love to kind of hear, current thoughts on this site. If you have other ideas or in your work in the community, and, do you see the demand or desire for other types of uses? So business startups, the kitchen, which we talked about a couple of years ago, we heard a lot about a space for community events and gathering, the need for that. And then, mentorship. Could there be a partner on site that was supporting these businesses with mentorship, in addition to having the space for them to sell their products? So welcome any ideas you have now, and certainly share those with Sarah beyond, and we can certainly come back at a future date.
May I ask a question? This is Dania Ballard.
Yes.
Dania, you're muted.
Thank you. This is Dania Ballard, and going back to the slide that actually shows the picture of the pods, or I'm not sure what the right word for it is. The context of where I'm coming from is I'm a homeowner kind of towards the Portland Road, Lancaster end of the area. And just in looking at this concept, I see this being a number of small businesses with the expectation that a number of people are going to come here and eat food. And right now, and this is clouded by the whole COVID thing and a whole bunch of dynamics, I'm a little perplexed at what we can do to actually make this successful. What I'm feeling right now, as far as Portland Road is concerned, is that it might be good for larger businesses, but what is the draw of actually bringing people into the area to actually use these small businesses? I'm concerned from a matter of what can we do to actually bring people in the area and actually feel safe and actually feel like they want to come here as a place to actually pay for a $10 meal on a regular normal basis. Because when I look at Salem as a whole, I don't see Portland Road being the place that I actually want to sit outside on a bench and have a nice dinner very regularly. So I'm concerned that the businesses might not succeed. Have we had any, and my question is much bigger, I know this. I'm clouding it by what are we doing as a city to actually cut down the crime, cut down the stuff that would actually cause people to want to come to Portland Road and serve a small business?
So I'm thinking of the small food truck pod that is just south of this site. Trying to think of the cross street. So it's just south of Lana. Has anyone eaten there or see, when I drive by, I see quite a few people. I see cars, people standing in line for food there.
I go there. They have some of the best burritos in Salem.
Churros, yeah.
Is it
Maybe that's a pilot or kind of a, we can learn from their experience, how that's working there.
And I think if you just look at the organic foot traffic in that area, I mean, it's basically Latinx based, right? The population density of the Latino community is a lot larger in that area. So I wouldn't be surprised as this proposal goes forward. I wouldn't be surprised if Latinos took over this area and made it their home, their hub. And that's, who's really organically going to these places off, Portland Road, which is awesome. So, I mean, yeah. Agreed. I understand the $10 plate. Why would, someone like for me that lives in West Salem, my wife and I go over to Portland Road. It's a nice drive, but then like the safety aspect, it definitely see that. But there's people around there that live there that they're not even thinking about that. I mean, that's their home. Like, they're going to eat and support local. So if the Latinx businesses go into this proposal spot, I bet you anything, you're going to see a lot more engagement from that community versus bringing people from the outside in. But that's just my thoughts. I don't, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I would add just from our business at Kerr, we're located on Hyacinth Street, and a number of our younger employees, they love to go out for lunch and have variety and adventure. And I would agree with Mike, the food carts are of interest. And, if the quality of the food is good, the location, if it's close to work. So I don't know for other businesses in the Northeast section, but for quite some time, the lunch menu has been pretty limited. And I don't know if this would be open during the lunch hour or just in the evening, but during the lunchtime, I would say do right after work. If it was a place, what I'm most familiar with is off Lancaster. I think it's called the Yard location. And I mean, the surroundings are not that pleasant. Really, if you look at it, it's a block off Lancaster. It's not a destination for the surrounding area. But once you're kind of in it, it's kind of a little separate little world, if you will. So, I don't know how open, you would form it and how you design it, but you might be able to have it somewhat kind of separated so that, if you were in that area, you weren't that concerned, as long as the other part's adequate parking too. You need to have adequate parking to attend it, if you went in and if you went in that area and it was, well kept and so forth, then it could, I think it could have some legs to it for both the lunch hour and after work too, for speaking from the businesses in the area as well.
I need to comment that it's really going to be a potential destination gathering spot, much like the 49th parallel has developed with a series of businesses and locations that now draw their own clientele base. The Yard food cart complex that was mentioned is going in the same direction, and it's really going to be a question of if the property is properly developed so it's clean, attractive, and has satisfactory parking, then it's up to the vendors to deliver a good product, and the word pretty quickly spreads. So it hasn't been an issue in the city of whether it was exactly well located as much as the product that's being provided. There's another food cart location on South Commercial, south of Baxter, and it is truly not convenient for much, except for the fact that it's got some decent parking and reasonable access off of Commercial Street. And I hear from kids and employees all the time that, oh, they had such and such meal there. One of the vendors in that particular complex started doing a service that catered larger meals, and last year that's where our Thanksgiving dinner came from, one of those vendors that provided a complete package, and it was excellent. The fact that it was reasonably priced and it was hot and it was tasty and it was well prepared. So my suggestion is that the location has the capacity or ability to be successful, predicated on the quality of the vendors.
I appreciate this conversation here. This is Danielle Ballard again. And frankly, I love the idea of having a place like this to be able to go eat. Going back to the very beginning of this presentation and seeing through the things that seem to be important in terms of business setup, what I don't be, also being a resident of this area, I recognize and I have personally felt the consequence of the crime that's in the area. And what I would like to suggest or encourage for small businesses, for anything happening on Portland Road, as we develop things, that we take into consideration the livability and the aura of what's around the area, because if we don't address the crime, no matter how good the food, no matter how great the actual business itself is, if people aren't coming here because of the crime aspect, that might not make a business succeed. And so I would just encourage that also be a consideration as we're developing the infrastructure to support things like this. Thank you.
Were there any other general questions or comments on the strategy?
I have one comment that's going to be in regarding the available land for business development part of the presentation. If now is an appropriate time to make those comments, I'm okay. Otherwise, I can wait till later.
Nate, go ahead. We'd like to hear it.
Okay. for those of you that don't know, my primary job up to June 10th, when I got in the accident, was commercial and industrial real estate. That has gone a little different direction as I promised my wife that I would stop pushing boundaries and didn't need to develop the rest of the world. So we have one project that is in process. And one of the things that we're running up against again, as has happened several times during the years that we've been developing, is the planning department has come up with new and creative ideas that they've put into the code that are I'm trying to remain polite, that are challenges to address. Today's conversation is that I have a developed site that has been developed for over 50 years, and the city of Salem's codes are that we get no credit for the fact that there has been runoff that's been properly handled by the surrounding infrastructure for 50 years, that our reference point is if we were just coming out of the Lewis and Clark camp, and what we are doing is brand new. Conversation with a young lady who was quite pleasant, Public Works front desk, said that the downstream water detention attenuation would be $916,000 as an additional development cost for the property. Does that make any economic sense? It does not. Is it a deal breaker? Yes, it is. The director of Public Works said that he'd really like to see this project, but from my perspective, it has to be an economic reality. If I can't build the project and make a nickel in the process, then I can't build the project, okay? This is not something that we're doing for fun. This is not something that we're doing because we need the experience developing property. It has to have a positive number at the end of the day to show a return on the investment. The City of Salem's planning department has added on issues, criteria, and requirements that have nothing to do with the project development. This particular project is going to have substantial tractor trailer and forklift traffic, and that is in direct conflict with the city's assessment of pedestrian access, which is correct to a retail complex and correct to a housing complex, but absolutely incorrect to an industrial development. So my request is that Seth and Annie go back to the planning department and have a heart-to-heart saying that there are some things that the city is adding because it seemed like a good idea at the time as a recommendation from some consultant. Oh yeah, that's a great idea, let's add that in. And months later, somebody in a public discussion has said, well, you know, that wasn't really thought out completely as far as the consequences. So in terms of available land for business, there are a few things out there that are potentially viable and should be not impossible to develop. If you take a look at the Truett complex on Front Street, that entire complex has been downzoned into a degree that is no longer usable for warehouse distribution. And that just sort of breaks my heart, because here is a piece of property that is readily usable. We could easily get jobs in there. It has the potential to be very viable and very productive, and the city has downzoned it so you can't even legally park buses. So my request is that you go back to planning and have a conversation with them, because planning is really the one that is controlling the ability to develop anything in the community, and is having a real serious negative effect on others' ability to accomplish that. Okay.
Nate, it sounds like we should, I will follow up with you on that specific property you're talking about with it sounds like maybe a SDC credit issue. So yeah, thank you for raising that. We will, I will follow up with you to get more information on that.
I'd be happy to provide you with all the information you need.
Thanks.
And Annie, just to follow up, and I think maybe this ties into sort of what Nate was saying. So correct me if I'm wrong. Sometimes I get everything mixed up. We have so many things going on these days. But part of what the board actually, this board approved in our budget, and it came out of the, that's coming out of this economic development strategy that you and Seth have been working on, is really to do some site industrial readiness sort of evaluation, looking at different sites throughout the city that would include North Gateway, that would give us a sense on some of these vacant sites, what would need to be developed, and if we need to put some tools in place to try and help that along, or to have that information, kind of like what Nate's referring to, some of the issues he's running into, so that we can get ahead of some of those. Is that correct?
Yes.
So that kind of ties into what you're talking about, Nate. And we do have some money in our budget to look at some North Gateway sites tied to that process, but it would be a larger city process. But it's coming out of this plan that they've been working on.
The North Gateway area is above and beyond several of the other areas, because the North Gateway development project allows for dollars being used for infrastructure development. And that infrastructure development is really the key to being able to accomplish a commercial development process. And if you take a look at the new creamery that was in, and some of the other business projects that have happened in the near term, and if you go back and have a conversation with those principal individuals, you'll find out that the infrastructure was key in their ability to accomplish that project. So I have to commend the North Gateway group for being able to accomplish some of the things that aren't readily available in other areas.
And we were able to help that business as well, Don Freelone, with an urban renewal grant from North Gateway as well. So unless there are other comments, we appreciate, I know you have other items you may want to discuss. So appreciate your time this morning. Are there any other comments before we close on this topic?
Yeah, I have one as well, Annie, for you and Sarah. So I know we've put in a couple of apartment complexes in the last couple of years. One there right next to the creamery, right behind it. And then we have a new apartment complex just north of Hyacinth and Portland Road. that looks quite good actually from driving by. I mean, but it's brand new, so it's newly landscaped and so forth, but it looks like it's filling up quickly. One of the challenges, both I know from Kerr and Americold next door, the big cold storage, we're really struggling with getting qualified workers. So I'm really happy to see workforce development, recruitment, promoting Salem. Those are all pieces to recruiting employees. But do you know with the new housing, has that helped support filling the business needs as far as employment? I'm not aware from our company that we've had, people moving into those that are directly working in our business. So I'm curious to see if there's just if you have any information, if businesses have been able to, fill their ranks easier because of the new apartments that have come on board.
I think it's still a challenge that many employers are struggling with. I know as it relates to unemployment insurance and unemployment benefits, the state is putting some new requirements in place that require folks to be applying for work and showing that. I know, childcare is a challenge. We're working through our federal funding, our community development block grant funding, and 2 new partners that we are working with to establish a new grant program where we can help childcare facilities start, kind of launch a business and pay for materials and rent and equipment or expand. So I think, looking at those reasons why, those challenges to work or barriers to work is where we're hoping to focus. I know Francisco at Don Freelone has mentioned that he's hired some individuals from the neighborhood. He didn't say specifically if they were from the apartments, but I'm not, that's what I would share, continuing to have that challenge and focusing with our workforce organization, Willamette Workforce Partnership on and others on kind of those reasons or barriers to work, and hoping that addressing some of those will help.
Yeah, I think that also ties into the earlier comment too with crime. So one of the benefits, if we have that housing nearby the businesses, you could walk to work, and if you could do that, that's a real benefit. No commute. I mean, that's an attractive piece. Also, if you felt comfortable living nearby where you worked. So I think it all kind of goes hand in hand. There's a lot of connections between the points that were on the list today, but overall, I think the topics seem to be on point, or the themes today that were presented. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I would chime in just as a kind of side to that, Mike. I have been getting recently a few different inquiries about some other potential residential projects in the area. So that may also kind of tie into some of the things that you're talking about right now too, but it does look like we may have some more interest in new residential development in the area. So maybe that'll kind of help kind of connect the dots a little bit as well.
Awesome, thank you. Any more questions for Annie or Seth? All right, awesome. Annie and Seth, thank you so much for joining us today. That's awesome that you guys, the project that you guys are working on. Looking forward to the implementation of all that stuff. It's a lot.
We will be working in partnership with you, Mike, as the venture catalyst.
Awesome, can't wait. I got so many ideas, I can't even put them all on paper. Awesome. Well, before we have Sarah give us an update with future meeting formats, does anyone else on the board have anything else to bring to the table as far as information or any questions? Anything happening? All righty. Well, Sarah, I'm going to give it over to you to kind of take us to the deadline.
Thank you. Sorry about the quick change on the agenda. I think as everyone is aware at this point, COVID is like this ever-changing dynamic in our world. When we created the agenda, we had been told that in our August board meetings, we were to talk to our boards to find out if you all wanted to start meeting in person again, if you liked remote, if you kind of wanted to have the option to sort of do both depending on the topic. And that was initially going to be what we were going to talk about. And then as of about 2 weeks ago, it became, you can meet in person, but you have to stay 6 feet away from each other. As you're all aware, our space at Center 50 Plus really doesn't allow for that. So we would have to either take over multiple rooms or find a new space. So in conversations with Jared, the thought was, let's just hold back and kind of see how things play out. And as of Tuesday, we were told that all boards need to meet virtually for the time being. So unfortunately, we tried to plan to have a conversation, and it's just in order to keep everybody safe and knowing everybody has different circumstances with family and work, we're just going to keep going remote for the time being and just kind of see how things play out. I would say that the positive thing that Jared and I talked about, and he did apologize for not being able to be here for this conversation. He's in Alaska fishing. Was that we've had really great attendance. Even on informational items, I think maybe there's just a convenience factor of being able to pop into a meeting and pop out when you have other things going on. So that's been really helpful. But obviously, one of his concerns was, as we have more in-depth conversations, when we're starting projects, when we have more controversial topics coming up, being able to meet in person would be nice to do. So hopefully, maybe by our October meeting, we'll be able to have that conversation. But at this point, I don't know. But I just wanted to let y'all know kind of what was going on and why it's shifting. I'm sure it's no surprise, but just to kind of know what was going on. As I think all of you are probably aware, the city's been taking a very, a very safe and conservative approach to COVID out of everyone's protection. And that's just sort of continuing right now. So that's kind of what's going on with our meetings, but we'll just kind of all roll with it. And I thank you all for being so flexible.
That's awesome. Thanks for the update. Alrighty, guys, that kind of ends our meeting. Let's go ahead and adjourn, and you guys have a good month ahead.
And unless anything comes up, we'll stick with the plan to not have a September meeting. It falls right before Labor Day, and then we would meet in October. But we won't make the final call until it gets a little closer in case something comes up that requires action.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.